From Kamaru Usman's moment with Woodley's mom that pulled at fans' heartstrings, to the Nick Yaris episode that had us bawling as he talked about his dark past, these are some Joe Rogan guests who will leave you in tears. Let's kick it off with the time he had a chat with Kamaru Usman. It's incredible how a parent's love for their child can move anyone to tears. And you know what? Kamaru winning the UFC welterweight championship by defeating Tyron Woodley at UFC 235 showcased this perfectly. Woodley's mom was always there, cheering him on during his fights when he was a top contender in the 170-pound weight class. Remember when Woodley crushed Darren Till at UFC 228? After that intense victory, his mom consoled Till, assuring him that he'd come back even stronger next time. And likewise, even though her son lost to Usman, she remained gracious and kind. She hugged an emotional Usman after UFC 235 and let him know there were no hard feelings whatsoever. The moment when Woodley's mom embraced Usman after the fight was truly heartwarming. And you won't believe this, Usman actually mentioned on the JRE MMA show in 2019 that he'd met Woodley at a UFC event before. So, the connection between them was even deeper. When Usman and Rogan watched the clip of that touching moment, emotions ran high. I mean, it was a truly special and unforgettable scene. Then there was the episode none of us ever thought would lead to an emotional moment, but it did. And apparently, it was because of the family too. It's the episode with Shirley. The Joe Rogan experience took a pretty unexpected turn and got all emotional during Joe's chat with Shirley Manson from Garbage. Who would have thought, right? These two had some serious chemistry going on. They ended up talking about Joe's kids, which hardly ever comes up on the podcast. But man, did they dive deep into it in this epic episode. They also explored the downsides of fame and success in the music biz, and it was mind-blowing. To be honest, the dad part, mixed in with the chaos of success, got a lot of tear ducts flowing. Right off the bat, you could tell Joe is a super devoted dad. I mean, he struggled to put into words just how much his family means to him. And you know how big of a deal that is, because the guy never has any issues when it comes to saying how he feels. But it feels like having kids completely rocked his world because, apparently, it had a massive impact on his friends too. Life-altering stuff, folks. And while we're on the subject of life-altering moments being discussed on the show, how could I skip the time Joe interviewed Jelly Roll? You won't believe the emotional conversation that went down between the podcaster and the passionate musician. Joe Rogan had a beautiful heart-to-heart with country singer Jelly Roll, and it was a total tearjerker. During the interview, Roll shared some seriously heartwarming stuff about his life and how he creates music. He revealed that his teenage daughter actually inspired his latest album because he wants his music to help people. How awesome is that? Jelly Roll straight up told Joe, "I want to help people." And he even explained that and said he sees his music as a therapeutic tool that's always been there for folks. Then, he opened up and shared something super personal, and it really got to him. He talked about how his mom, who battled serious mental health issues and addiction, would stay holed up in her room all the time. But every once in a while, she'd surprise everyone by coming downstairs, putting on a vinyl record, and lighting a cigarette. And according to Roll, this would literally transform the whole atmosphere in the house. Now things got super emotional at this point because he got all choked up, wiping away tears as he remembered how the neighborhood would come alive. Their kitchen turned into a full-on nightclub. Back then, he didn't really understand addiction or mental illness, but he knew there was something special about those moments and the music. The singer then revealed that he spent his entire life writing songs for his mom and indirectly for those who are struggling with addiction and feeling broken. This interview hit fans right in the feels. The video got thousands of likes on YouTube, with people truly moved by the discussion. And it's not always the guests who cause the tears, sometimes it's revelations by the podcaster himself. For instance, do you remember the time he talked about his dog? Now, if you're a fan of Joe Rogan and follow him on Instagram or listen to his podcast, you're probably well aware of his love for animals, especially his dog Marshall. I mean, it's no secret. And if you're not already following Marshall on social media, you're missing out on witnessing the beautiful bond between Rogan and his furry best friend. In a 2018 interview with American director Kevin Smith, they had a heartfelt conversation about the special connections people have with their dogs and how beloved these companions are to us all. But hey, hold on a minute because the mood takes a bit of a turn when Joe starts talking about his dog's health issues. Poor Marshall had recurring seizures, and it really hit Joe hard. He shared the story with genuine emotion, talking about the difficult decision he had to make with his vet to end Marshall's suffering. And here's where things get even more heartbreaking. Joe then revealed that the very same vet he had that moment with, well, tragically, they were later killed by a drunk driver. It was just a devastating turn of events. And then there was the episode where Joe talked about the loss of an old friend with Morgan Fallon. You know, just like the rest of us, Joe Rogan was hit hard by the news of Anthony Bourdain's suicide. They were actually really good friends, even though their crazy schedules kept them from hanging out often. But get this, Bourdain actually appeared on Rogan's podcast way back in 2011 on episode 138. That's some history right there. So here's the thing, Rogan suggested to Bourdain that he should give Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a shot. And guess what? Bourdain took his advice and started training in it. Can you believe that? He even made progress and got himself a blue belt. But then, out of nowhere, Bourdain passed away at the age of 61. It was a shock to everyone. Soon after Bourdain's death, Rogan had Morgan Fallon on his show. Now, Morgan was the producer and director of Bourdain's show, Parts Unknown. And let me tell you, that episode had a really sad tone to it. It was all about reflecting on the loss and remembering their friend. There was a really emotional moment in the episode when Rogan just couldn't hold back his tears. The realization hit him hard that he'd never see Bourdain again. It was tough, man. Rogan and Fallon sat down together and shared their memories of their time with Bourdain. They grieved and paid their respects to their departed friend, all in that one episode. It was like a therapeutic process for them, and for the fans too. But that wasn't the only moment on the show that pulled all the right strings to get the tears flowing. There was also the one where Rogan sat down with Nick Yaris. Now let me tell you about Yaris, a man who's faced some seriously tough times. His life took a dark turn when he ended up in prison for auto theft and got addicted to drugs. But here's the crazy part. He ended up spending more than 2 decades behind bars for a crime he didn't even commit. Can you imagine? Fast forward to his appearance on the JRE in 2018, where Yaris had the opportunity to share his story. It's a tough listen, y'all. He opened up about the unspeakable things he endured while locked up. Yet, throughout all the hardships, he somehow managed to hold on to the belief that the truth would eventually set him free. Now, I've got to warn you, this episode of the JRE can be quite heavy. Yaris describes the immense abuse he experienced throughout his life, and it's not easy to hear. But trust me, it's vital to watch because it shows how a person can endure unimaginable suffering and still find a way to live what appears to be a normal life. As you listen to Yaris' story, it's hard not to empathize with him. The sheer resilience he displays is mind-blowing. What's even more astonishing is how he can recount his experiences without rumbling emotionally. If you ask me, it's easily a testament to his inner strength and determination. So, buckle up and brace yourself for this deeply moving episode. You might want to keep some tissues nearby, and there you have it. From the Nick Yaris episode that had us bawling as he talked about his dark past, to Kamaru Usman's moment with his mama that pulled at my heartstrings, those were some Joe Rogan guests who will leave you in tears.